Our next guest that's up, this is going to be interesting. Geoff, our next guest is Geoff Allen. I don't want to read his bio because I want him to read his bio to you. I found this so interesting. Geoff is a psychic medium. You can go check out his website at geoffallenmedium.com, and that's spelled Geoff, Allen, Allen, medium.com. His book that was just released, we'll find out for sure. I don't know the exact date, is called So You Want to Be a Psychic. And Geoff is just an all-around great guy. We had the chance to talk with him. I believe he is in the part of the country that is getting hit terribly with weather. So without any more assumptions, let's go ahead and get Geoff on the line. Geoff, good evening. Welcome to Fringe Radio, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me on tonight, Pat. I got to tell you, I've been tuned in all night now to the show, and what a great guest Lee was. Fascinating stories, and what an interesting guy to listen to. I've been really enjoying the show tonight.
Well, thank you. He is. And also, I don't know, a couple of our listeners have commented and called in, too. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty tonight with our audio stream going out. It's a little bit on the hot side. They made some changes in the studio here the other day. I'm not here during the week. And I've noticed that some of the meters, I can make some adjustments, but there's some things I can't adjust. So my apologies if you've got to back it down just a little bit, but we will get that brought up to the engineer. But anyway, Geoff, it is an honor to have you here tonight. And I've been going through your website and your bio, and, man, you've done a lot of stuff.
Well, I've tried. I've got an interesting background for sure. I was a police officer from 91 to 97 out in Colorado. And during that time, well, let me back it up even farther. I was born in Jersey, and then at age 7, we moved out to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, which we all know that there was a little battle that was fought there, about 150 or so years ago.
A couple people got killed.
Yeah, a couple people got hurt in that incident, and it's I believe it's in a couple of history books nowadays, but I'm not sure. I wasn't very scholarly in my in my high school days, but yeah, growing up at age 7, we lived near the battlefield, and of course, attending Gettysburg schools, you take field trips to the battlefield, picnics. Most of your activities center around that and the area, and it was interesting because that's when I really first understood that I had this weird, ironic type ability or vision or connection to the other side that nobody else could see. For instance, I was adopted at birth, and I have younger siblings that were all natural. They don't have this ability, or they haven't embraced it if they do, as well as the parents. My parents don't understand it. To this day, they don't understand it. So I was brought up to be almost skeptical of it and to not really understand it. So I kept it a deep, dark secret. This was I was born in 1970. So, in the late 70s, early 80s, you didn't talk about this stuff. People, you were told to keep it quiet. People think you're crazy.
Sure.
So we kept it quiet. And then at age 14, we moved out to Colorado. And at age 21, I became a cop. Well, they don't give badges and guns to guys who talk to dead people. So kind of kept that kind of under wraps. So I didn't let that cat out of the bag until about 2006 when I really decided to embrace this and try to understand what it is how I can do it and why I can do this, as well as other people. I believe that everyone has this ability on different levels. And it's kind of like playing basketball is the way I like to explain it to people. Everyone can play basketball. I don't care if you're a paraplegic, quadriplegic. You could still participate in the game.
In some way.
You may not make it into the Hall of Fame, but you can play. So what happened was I started really embracing this, and I started seeking out guys and gals who really knew this field, who understood what they were doing. Some were on a very spiritual level. Some were on a very scientific level, as far as skeptics, believers, clergy, doctors, spiritualists, you name it. I would talk to everybody, historians. I surrounded myself with people to try to educate myself. And so I made a lot of mistakes along the way. I did some dumb things with my ability. I made some mistakes, but I learned from them, fortunately, and that's when the book kind of came about. And the book was just released last month. So far, it's getting really good reviews. People really enjoy it. I like to employ a sense of humor with what I do, and it's sometimes a very dark field. So having a sense of humor brings some levity to gallery events or private sessions, these types of things. It's kind of fun to get people to start smiling and chuckling a little bit and kind of take the edge off. So that's kind of where I came. And then when my publisher came to me maybe about a year and a half ago, she said, "Hey, you really need to write a book on how you can do what you do. People are interested in that." And I thought, well, I'm not even sure how I can do what I do.
Right.
So I said, well, let me do some research and really start digging into the scientific side and then the spiritual side, and let's put something together that's fun. It contains a lot of experiences that I've been through, things that I've done, things that I've seen, and then and I use those as examples of sometimes of what not to do. So the book is.
Let me ask you, Geoff, if you don't mind. How did you know that you did you have this gift at a young age? I mean, was it? And I've asked this of all the different psychics that I've interviewed. Is it something that when you make physical contact with somebody, I mean, or you're in somebody's presence, that you see things that they don't, or you sense things, or how does it kind of work for you?
I'm what they call an empathic, clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairgustant, clairolfactant medium. In other words, I'll get around people. When I was really young, it was a lot simpler because I wasn't trying to connect. So if I would see a presence or feel an energy around me, it was foreign to me and frightening, to be honest with you. So then as an adult, and when I decided to embrace it, I was said, okay, there's never been a headline in a newspaper that said ghost kills guy.
Right.
So I thought, okay, now they can be disruptive. You can have different types of energies, poltergeist, demons, those types of things, and depending on your belief structure. And that's where the education came in. And with the education came the ability to not be afraid, to not experience fear when I see something move across a room, because I've been involved in deliverances. Some might call them demonic entities or negative energies, however you want to phrase it, whatever your belief structure is. But I've seen some pretty wild stuff. When a family has been tormented, I've been asked to come in and basically exterminate the ghost, get it out of there. And during those types of situations, it can get pretty hinky. But for me, it's kind of, I guess the way I explain it is when you've got a television, for instance, when you turn off a TV and you run your hand across the screen, you can feel the electrical energy
the static.
On the screen.
Right. All right, everybody, welcome back to Fringe Radio. Our guest tonight is psychic Geoff Allen. Again, Geoff, thank you so much for taking time to be here tonight.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate being on tonight. So we were talking right before the break. We were talking about trying to describe this ability, and like you said, you watch a television, you take your hand, you run it over the top of it, you get the static electricity. You get that static on your hand from the screen. Absolutely, and that's how I kind of explain it to people in almost layman's terms. When you feel that, you can feel that electrical energy, but you can't see it. And then if you take, for instance, a wintergreen lifesaver, I don't know if you've ever done that trick. You pop a wintergreen lifesaver in your mouth in the dark, stand in front of a mirror. And when you chew on it, you'll see sparks.
Really?
Well, yeah. That's try it. The old-fashioned wintergreen lifesavers in the roll. You pop one in your mouth, you chew on it, and in the mirror you'll see sparks. Well, you can see the sparks, but you can't feel it. So it shows that there's energy out there that we can see but not feel, and feel but not see.
Right.
So we take that, and that I employ into my theory of how I can do what I do. That there's electrical energy all around us, and we've only really been in command of this electrical energy since Ben Franklin flew his kite.
Right.
So as far as humanity is concerned, it's been very short-lived. We don't know a whole lot about electrical energy. And when you look at some of the paranormal teams, I'm not a big paranormal investigator. I've gone on some. I'm more into getting rid of ghosts rather than going and looking for them.
Right.
But the teams, when they go and they'll have electrical issues. Their batteries will go dead. Their cameras will fail. Their what have you. And I've seen it all. You see it all the time. So there's definitely an electrical connection to the other side. And matter of fact, when I did a show down in Galveston, Texas, I was living down there for a number of years, and went into the studio. Now before the show, and it's kind of why I called in a little bit early tonight, because I always like to do a level check because things tend to go haywire when I go on these shows. But went into the studio and I told the engineer, I said, we need to do a level check and get everything ready before we go live because things can go haywire anyways. And he kind of gave me the look of, okay, yeah, whatever, kind of an eye roll. Okay. And the gal who was with me that evening, she documented a lot of my readings. And so she was going to go on the air with me, and she looked at me and she said, he didn't believe you. And I said, well, hopefully we'll, not have any problems. Well, we go into the broadcast, and at the first commercial break, the engineer comes running into the studio and says, what's wrong with your mic? I said, nothing. I haven't touched it. And he says, I can hear hers just fine, but yours, I've never heard this kind of feedback before. And I said, okay. He goes, well, let's switch your mics out. And so he wound up switching mics out. Every commercial break, we switched a mic out because we just couldn't get it. We couldn't figure it out.
Make it work, yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't get it to work. And so it was kind of at that point, I was like, well, you know what? I might have a problem in radio studios. And it seems like a lot of shows that I do, there will be some type of interference coming through. Like you said tonight, you're having some anomalies, whatever. That doesn't surprise me at all. But it's an electrical game, and so that's kind of the scientific take. And then if we think about it, our brains are nothing but electrical firestorms.
Right.
And how do we declare someone dead? Either through decapitation or there's no more electrical impulses traveling through their bodies. Their heart stops. What happens when their heart stops? We hit them with defibrillator paddles. And that's an electrical jolt that jumpstarts the heart, and that sends oxygen to the brain, and then the brain starts kicking up electrical impulses again and tells the heart to keep pumping.
Right.
So there's something to do with electrical energy and what it is that we do. And that's kind of what I go into a little bit in the book about that. So that kind of gives a little bit of more of a realistic scientific take than a spiritual. But I also have a very spiritual take on what I do. I'm a Christian. I'm not a great one, but I try. It's the nice thing about being a Christian, we can still make C's and get in, So, but I believe that there's power in that. I believe that there's a higher power, a higher consciousness that guides us and helps us out. I believe in angels and the whole like. I just don't understand how the whole package works, and I'm not sure that anybody really does. But it's kind of my quest and my goal to learn more and more to try to find out and connect the two, the electrical energy with the higher power. So that's kind of my whole take on all this, and it seems to work, and it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of exercises that I do, and I also instruct mediumship as well as locate missing persons, those types of things. It's a fun lifestyle if you devote yourself to it. There are a lot of things that people are doing that I see out there. A lot of the TV mediums, stuff like that. I think it's great for the business and for the field.
Right.
But what you don't see on TV, you see what's edited. For instance, before I go into a session, I do a little bit of praying, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Well, what you don't see on TV is Teresa Caputo or Kim Russo or Chip Coffey. You don't see them, John Edward. You don't see them praying because it's boring. It doesn't make for good TV. So they edit all that out, but it gives the impression to someone who's interested in exploring that side of themselves and exploring their connection. Hey, this is a walk in the park. I can do this too. when you're not getting the whole story. So that's kind of also where the book goes. It kind of explains some things that can go wrong if you don't take it seriously, and if you don't understand what you're doing, and you don't have people that you can turn to when things go wrong or things go bad for you.
Right.
That you need to have someone who's been there, done that, so they can say, "Oh, I know. Okay, you did this, you did that. Here's a way that you can get out of that sticky situation, or clear that attachment, or clear that spiritual energy, et cetera, et cetera." And I don't necessarily believe any one way is correct over the other either. I've got friends who are pagans. I got friends who are doctors. I've got, you name it. And because I think that there are different viewpoints, and it behooves you to have friends and mentors that can jump in there and say, "Oh, well, in our walk, we would do this to help you," versus this is the only way to do it. Because there are different ways. It's kind of like going to McDonald's. There's 5 different roads you can take to get to McDonald's.
Sure.
But you ultimately wind up at the Golden Arches. So long as you get there, you get there. So that's kind of a little bit of my spin on it, a little bit of my background on all this.
Well, because it is such a diverse field, Geoff. I mean, it's not there's not any one way. I mean, there's it's a very complicated, complex, I think, multi-dimensional practice, if you will.
Absolutely. You've got people who are very spiritual, who work with chakras and vibrations, and the field's very diverse, and that's what makes it interesting, because there are experts in every vein of what this spirit communication or energy connection. There are tons of different theories and tons of different experts in the field, and that's what's fun is being able to converse with those people and share ideas. And I think the education out there, the freedom of education, and the willingness of people to share what they know is outstanding in this field, and it's what makes this very fun to do.
Now, let me ask you, in your bio, and looking through some of your notes, a couple things that I wanted to touch on, and some other people commented on. You were a police officer for several years in Colorado. Did you use your talents or your gift with your police work?
Absolutely. And now, did I document it in any reports? No. It's not something that you want to take into a courtroom and tell the judge, well, I knew the person was hiding in this building because the spirits told me. I was a little bit more subtle than that. What's funny is cops are inherently skeptic, because in order to use something in court, you have to put it in someone's hand. You need documented evidence. You have to prove things, and
right.
Proof is a very objective type term, especially when you come to spirits and UFOs and you name it. It's one man's proof is another man's debunking.
Right.
But as a cop, we all use the term cop hunch. Everyone's heard of that. I just had a hunch. Well, these hunches come from somewhere. A hunch is not something that was handed to you. Now, if a car goes by at 120 miles an hour, you can go, I think that car is speeding. I have a hunch. I'll turn on my radar. That's not a hunch. That's an observation.
Right.
But there are times when you say, I'm going to hang out behind the old 7-Eleven here, or the old convenience store, because I just got a hunch that something's going to go down tonight. Something doesn't feel right. And every cop has that in them. Every good cop that's ever stumbled across a crime or solved one on a hunch, that came from somewhere. And it would be egotistical to think that I was the only one on the force that used that. So but that's what they'll call it, is a hunch, rather than, well, I had this sign, or I felt this energy from the other side, and because you might bust a promotion for that. And those that head law enforcement, chiefs and sheriffs, they're political figures. Sheriffs are elected, but chiefs are appointed, but they're still appointed by an elected official, a mayor. So what they don't want is to give the perception of we're hiring this guy because he has a psychic ability.
Right,
that's not going to fly very well with the public. So they would rather say, hey, this guy's just a good cop. He's got a good track record. He's honest. He's reliable, and he's done some good things. He's cracked some cases. We don't know how he did it.
So when you had this assistance, and I'm just trying to get an understanding of it, because I myself, now let me preface it with this. Like you said, you feel that everybody, and this, I've heard this from many psychics, people, you believe that everybody at some level has psychic abilities. I have not worked on mine. I haven't concentrated on mine. My wife has just gone through a mediumship class for the past, I think, 12 weeks. She's very, very green into it, but she was able to make a connection with some people in her class. She worked with Travis Hill, who's here in Salt Lake City. Been around a long time, great young man. But she practices that. She practices meditation. She practiced, and I don't. I didn't do that. So when you were in the situation where something came to you and said, "Hey, that guy's around the corner. There's something else in the other room." Was it a spirit guide? Was it a voice, Geoff? What was it? What told you? Or maybe is that something you just can't explain and put into lay terms?
Well, it's something like that would be similar to running your hand across the front of the TV screen, feeling an energy. For instance, like on a building search, for instance, you feel the hair on the back of your neck stands up, but you don't see anyone yet. You can't hear anyone, but you feel like you just know that there's someone in here. Something's not right, and that is just my theory on that is just it's an electrical energy, and you're feeling it. There's a way to do it. There's an openness, and I applaud your wife for taking classes and opening that up. That's something that's really fun to watch, and it's fun to see how people open up to that. And it really is a muscle. It's kind of like learning your multiplication tables when you were a kid. The more you practice it, the more you go over it, the more you build that connection and work that connection, the easier it is to stay connected to the other side. And so as far as law enforcement goes, I would say the thing that I used most would be the ability to pick up on someone who's lying to me.
Gotcha.
And I'm versed in proxemics and kinesics, and we're trained for that. There are physical signs you can look for when people are lying, but there's also that when you first, boom, clue into them and sit them down in front of you, you just go, okay, this is going to be a long interview or interrogation if it turns into one, because you feel it. There's an energy, and it's an observation, and it's hard to explain. It really is, but that's what makes a good cop is when he can pick up on that a lot quicker than the other guys. And you use your training as well as your innate ability to tune into that energy and what they're putting out, what the person's giving you. And boom, you can really do a lot of good work. Now, as far as communicating with a spirit, no, I didn't have a spirit that came through and said, hey, this guy did this, bup. I didn't, that wasn't really, because I couldn't use that in court for anything. So I would kind of tune that out. Now, a missing person case, that would be different. I would gather the facts and then kind of start tuning in. If the person had crossed over, then I had an emotional item because I used psychometry, which is the ability to feel an item that had an emotional attachment to that person, maybe their wallet, their car keys, a necklace, a watch, a ring. And I can pick up on energy through that, and it starts to build a picture for me. I'll get tastes in my mouth. I'll get smells. I'll get little thoughts coming into the head, kind of the third eye kind of thing, hearing things.
Little indications come from everywhere.
Right. Absolutely. And for instance, when I teach mediumship, I teach my students, look, get a scan going, similar to what a pilot does in a cockpit. You don't just focus on your altimeter. You focus on your artificial horizon, your airspeed indicator, your RPMs. You get a scan going. And so when I teach mediumship, it's the same thing. I teach, okay, what are you smelling? What are you tasting? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? What are you seeing? And keep cycling through those senses. Now, with clairaudience, which is the ability to hear, the most sensitive bones in your body are in your ear. So as far as a physical manipulation from the other side, it would be very easy for them to wiggle your eardrum and your stirrup and give you a sound. And then as far as smelling things, that's a very sensitive ability is your sense of smell, as well as taste, and then sight, as well as feeling. For instance, if I'm in a session, I was doing a group session a couple weeks ago, and the gentleman sitting to my direct right was a diabetic. And throughout the whole session, I kept saying, okay, there's an energy that's a diabetic, because I will feel like I get punched in my liver. And everyone kept saying, no, my grandma didn't have diabetes. And I'm like, there's a diabetic. And the guy didn't speak up.
All right, everybody. We are back with our guest, Geoff Allen, tonight. Go ahead, Geoff. Why don't you finish up that story about the diabetic, and then we've got a caller on hold.
Okay, great. Yeah. Like I was saying, in the group event, I was channeling spirits, boom, 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 but every spirit that was coming through would go back to me getting a feeling like I was getting punched in my liver. And that, to me, is my sign for this person's a diabetic. And they're like, no, we don't have any diabetics in the family. Finally, the gentleman sitting to my right speaks up, and he says, well, I'm a diabetic. And okay, that's that hand going in front of the TV thing again, where it's the energy. I'll pick up on those things. So it can get confusing at times, but I usually get very consistent symbols, and from the other side, I'll get letters, numbers, pictures, movies, and sounds, and symbols, and so I take all that into account as far as what my body's given me, and all that, and that's kind of how I do my thing. So it's these gallery readings are all fun. They're always different. It almost feels like I'm going to a family reunion when I get to do these things. It's a lot of fun.
Do you ever have some people that you just can't pick up on, or you sense they're blocking things a little bit on you?
Well, that blocking thing is I don't necessarily believe that anyone can block you. I think that people can be abrasive or not accepting. And then I've even had people that have what I call psychic tunnel vision, where I'll get, for instance, a recurring type situation. I'll tell a quick story. I know we've got a caller, but I was doing a reading one time with a gal, and I kept being shown sheet music and a guitar, and she couldn't figure out what that meant. But the spirit, I was able to pass on validation after validation about this spirit, and after about an hour and a half of this, going around and around with this, these symbols kept coming up, and she couldn't identify them. She said, there's one thing he could say to me that would make me feel like you're real. And I was like, okay. I said, I don't get tested. I don't audition. But finally I said, I don't know what you're looking for. And she said, well, he used to sit at the foot of the bed and sing to me. And I thought, well, there's your sheet music and guitar. And she says, but he didn't play guitar and he didn't write music. And so I kind of call that psychic tunnel vision. So when I get that with people, I have to explain to them that, sometimes I'll get a brand new symbol that I don't know what it means, and it's up to us to figure it out. But it'll usually be accompanied by very specific validations, like dates of crossing, dates of birth, anniversaries, these types of things. That names, you name it. The way they crossed over, it gets pretty specific when I do it, because I'm fairly skeptical of this. I'm pretty hard on myself that if I get someone who's on the other end of the spectrum where they're agreeing to everything, and they say, oh, this and that, and yes, 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 and I say, no, that's not the message they're wanting you to hear with that symbol, or that doesn't feel right. They're telling me no. So we'll work on it, but I don't think anyone can really block you. I think that if they're you can feel that the person is either going to work with you and be open to receiving the symbols and messages that are coming through, or they're just plain old not, and then don't waste your time, kind of thing.
Exactly. You want to take a call?
Sure.
Caller, good evening. You're on with Geoff Allen.
Hello, this is Charles. I've not talked to you in a long time, Pat.
Oh, Charles, how are you, my friend?
Doing better and better and better in a lot of ways, but there's still some mystery. And I've had you and Carol in my prayers for the past months, and hoping you all are doing well. You sound wonderful and strong.
We're hanging in there.
It's great. You probably, after a loss, once you get that contact and connection, it was like when I lost my last parent. Finally, when the connection was made, it was just like they're there now. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. In some ways, it's more reliable than what it was before, and the connection's stronger. But I would like to ask Geoff a question or two. Pat knows some of the mysteries and unusualness of my life. It is, I'm a rare person to say that without...
Aren't we all?
You have no idea, on this genetically.
Try being a medium.
A situation that I'm one of 8 on the planet. And, I mean, it's been backed up by the best medical people, and they're just, but I've got that pretty much under control, even though it's a pretty wild bronc. I can ride it and for the most part, keep it under control. I cannot figure out, though, what the hell to do with the rest of my life. Because it does create limitations, which everybody has limitations and are affected. But some of these can be pretty massive. I would like to be able to do some things and have some semblance of life. Do you pick up anything that might be?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that's coming through for me when I'm talking with you, are you having any problems with your right leg
or whatever? It's.
I'm sorry.
I want to make the best of the rest of it.
Yeah, Charles, did you hear what Alan had to say?
Hello?
Yeah, you there, Charles?
Hello?
Hello?
I think my phone just cut out.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, here we go.
We'll let him call back in again.
Sure. I'm telling you, Pat, this happens all the time. But while I was speaking to him, if he can hear us now, or maybe he'll call back in, I was getting something with the right leg. There's a right leg issue. And I don't know if he's lost his wife, if he said that, but I feel like there's a female presence that's on his level that hangs around him. But there's something to do with the right leg.
I don't know, maybe he'll hopefully he'll call back in.
Okay, and also the month of February. And I know we're in the month of February, but the month of February hangs over him.
Okay.
For some reason. That'll either be like a crossing or a birthday. So hopefully he'll hear that or maybe call back in. But that's as far as, and that's the other interesting thing is being a medium, a lot of people will confuse what I do with fortune telling. And I'm not a guy who does like love predictions when you're going to find your wife or when am I going to get a job, those kinds of things. That's not really what I do. I channel loved ones who've crossed over. And if a lot of times they will give me a validation of things to look for that will validate their presence. And usually those validations will come to pass within the next 3 days or so. For instance, it was funny. I had a skeptic that I was doing a session with. His wife was a believer, and she said, "You got to see this guy." And I was channeling his parents that had crossed over, and everything was coming through great. And he was like, "Wow, this is pretty impressive." And I said, "Well, what you need to look for," and this is going to sound weird, but it always does, being a medium, look for a yellow kayak in the next couple of days. Okay. That's going to be a validation that what I'm saying here today is correct. Well, 3 days later, I get the phone call from his wife. It was an interesting story. She says, "You're not going to believe this, but there was a truck broke down in front of our house this morning, and the kid was tying up his yellow kayak." And I said, "Well, did the kid live in the neighborhood? Have you seen this before?" I try to debunk it as much as I can to make sure this is a valid validation. And she goes, "No, the funny thing she goes, I've never seen that truck, never seen that kid. And we drive by it, pull into the driveway. We had to kind of drive around him. And I turned to my husband and I said, "Did you see that?" And he says, "What, the kid with the dreadlocks?" And she says, No, the yellow kayak. And so it was kind of ironic that he almost missed the validation, because it doesn't usually stay in someone's head. You know, we have our daily lives. We go to work.
Sure.
We have bills to pay. We don't think about these things a whole lot unless you're really into it and you're always looking for signs. And so she had to kind of nudge him and say, "There's your yellow kayak," and he said, "Oh my God, we got to call Geoff." And so when those things come to pass, when I do sessions with people and events and such, they usually, when I give them something, it usually comes to pass within a couple days. And so and usually I'll get those phone calls. If I had a nickel for every phone call that says, "You're not going to believe this," I'd be a wealthy guy.
I think Charles is back on. Want to try him again?
Sure.
All right, Charles, is that you?
Yes.
Okay,
Let's
try it again. We can hear you fine.
I can hear you now better than I did before. The audio was unusual. It is my left leg, and the left leg, I had a third-degree burn on it it just happened spontaneously 3 days before 9/11. I was walking through my house, and I started hearing screams and sirens and everything like that. My temperature went real high, then it dropped, and the light, like flashes of lightning in the house, and there was a hole down to the bone on my left leg.
Wow!
And it healed over. It's scarred, but the scar is slowly but surely going away. And my neighbors the next morning said, "What the hell was going on at your house?" There was something going on. What was going on? And they were real open. And I told them what was going on, and they saw my leg swelled about twice its size, and you could see the bone and everything. And I've had third-degree burns in a motorcycle wreck before.
Did that happen in February?
That happened 3 days before 9/11.
Oh, before 9/11. Okay. Because there's also a female presence on your level that's with you.
It's my mother. She was also a victim of this genetic disorder, as my father was a carrier, probably, because I had to have it on both sides. And but she did lose her legs to this disorder.
Oh, she lost her leg. Was it her right leg?
She lost both, eventually both.
Okay.
And she's around. She's around. It's real apparent at times.
Did she have a February birthday or a February crossing?
When was her? No, she passed in June, the end of June, but she was born the 8th of January.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
The 8th of January. She was born the 8th of January and passed in June, the end of June.
Interesting. Also, the letter M is strong.
That would, any M's would be possibly people, childhood friends. They all.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Childhood friends. Most of my childhood friends' first name was M.
Did these friends have an attachment to your mother?
Oh, everybody did. She was one of those people that once my best friends and people would meet her, I'd get a phone call when I was a kid, and they'd say, "I want to talk to your mother." It would be like, and she was just one of those people that everybody was really attached.
Very interesting. Also, I want to tell you that now for some things to come, I know that we're getting wrapped up here, but June. This coming June is going to be a good month for you. They're pointing me into a blossoming type thing, or an enhancement to your life, like a financial bump. So look for a financial bump in June.
All right, I would take one tomorrow.
Wouldn't we all?
Yes, wouldn't we all? But I wonder if I should pursue anything. Do you pick up that I pursue anything, or just let things pursue me?
You know what? On that kind of thing, I always tell people, go with your heart. Just pursue what you got. To me, that's not a spiritual question. It's a psychic question. That's a drive question, and it's one of those things where I'll tell people, look, just go with what motivates you. Go with what makes you happy. Mm-hmm. just keep trying. Don't give up hope, kind of thing. I wish I could say, here, you should go into this field, but if I've just, that's not what I do. But there's a good nature about you and a likability to you, and so use that. You will be good with people because of your heart. Mm-hmm. You've got a good genuineness and an openness, and people will be attracted to that for you.
Well, I appreciate the time, and I will look forward to June, and I will,
let me know.
June can be tomorrow as far as I'm concerned, with things improving on that way. But I've gotten, since my life has always been based on survival. Even when I was just a wee child, I realized, it was a battle of survival of the fittest and me doing everything to survive. And I knew in my heart and soul that there was something bad wrong, and then found out later it's a bone marrow disorder, bone marrow liver disorder that's exceedingly rare, and no cure, no research, because it's really beyond anything they can even comprehend, the weirdness of it, and that I'm alive. But I kind of, my heart says, kind of lay back, let it come to me, everything come to me, because I've been, running after everything my whole life. There's a time you sit back and let it bring you flowers, bring you flowers and take you to dinner, instead of being perpetually pursuing that. But thank you very much. God bless both of you all, and I enjoy the show immensely.
Okay, Charles, have a good night, my friend. Take care. Yeah, interesting, Geoff, without a doubt. We've got to wrap it up. Your book is called So You Want to Be a Psychic. Where can our listeners get your book?
They can get that through my website at JeoffAllenMedium.com, also through Red Orchid Publishing. They're my publishers. Okay. You can go to their website. It's also available on Amazon and Kindle, and they can pick that up there. And also all my contact information is up on my website, too. People can reach out to me. Would love to hear. And then next week I'll be in Chicago at the Body, Mind, Spirit Expo. I got a couple of lectures I'll be giving there, as well as got a couple of radio shows coming up, too. We'll have everything posted up on my website.
Well, I hope we can get you back again down the road.
I would love to.
Okay, my
friend. Had a great time.
Hey, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Take care. God bless, and we'll stay in touch.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me on, Pat.
Anytime, my friend. Take care. Good night.